All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Nerds Be Heard podcast. I'm Matt Lesmeister. Joining me, as always, Charlie Fisher, and we're here to talk about the final episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, now known as Charlie
Captain America
and the Winter Soldier. Let's talk about that. Sometimes I start a book from the last page. I like to see what happens last before I start diving into the book. I love my spoilers. This isn't a spoiler as much as it is just a general statement. But the end credits referred to this show as Captain America and the Winter Soldier. And I think I thought it was cool. It made me very happy. But I think it almost dissed all the character development of Bucky. I feel like they should have ended it with Captain America and the White Wolf to show a full character development, full circle for both characters. They entered the season as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They left the season as Captain America and the White Wolf. So for me, I feel like they dropped the ball there, but
I completely agree with you. I mean, it's funny. I totally expected / wanted it to end that way. So when it happened, I was pleasantly surprised. And yeah, I thought it was a little interesting that they're just continuing with Bucky as the Winter Soldier. Because I mean, he's not really that anymore. And he's been this entire time, trying to move on from that part of his life and, repent for his sins. So yeah, I thought, unfortunately, I guess it's just the show really wasn't about him. It was just he was a side character that they put in the title.
Well, that's the thing. I think for me, what they were trying to emphasize at the end is that Sam is the new Captain America, right? And then it wasn't a coincidence that right around the time the episode released, they also leaked the news that there is a Captain America 4 in development as an MCU edition from a film perspective. And so I think that was really their introduction of this next phase of Captain America as, Sam Wilson. So that it feels like they were trying not to distract from that. But on the same vein, this whole series, I felt like, was for both characters a chance for us to get deeper into their individual characters, their stories, and their development in this next phase of the MCU. And I just felt like, Sebastian Stan did just such a wonderful job with the character, and it was almost a disservice to him to just kind of dismiss that. And honestly, he only faked being the Winter Soldier on one episode in Madripoor during this whole series. So it just felt kind of weird that they're still referring to him as something he's been trying to escape with regards to his past. So just thought that was interesting.
No, yeah. And two, like to continue talking about that, it's interesting because I'm wondering if now maybe there is a season 2 of the show and it focuses more on Bucky. Because one interesting thing that's come out is that for awards, WandaVision has been submitted as a limited series, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier has been submitted as a drama, meaning that they're keeping that open for there to be a second season. Probably also they don't want the two shows to compete with each other, but that's clearly the one that may get a second season out of the two. Right. And I know we've talked about that in the past, and I really do think the show's going to get another season, but it's going to be completely, not necessarily like it's an anthology series, but it's going to be like a completely new show. You probably wouldn't have to seen the first season to enjoy the second.
Yeah, and actually, to go off that, right? We are a podcast of predictions. I actually think they're going to probably make another season with a different focus, and they might not even be called Captain America and the Winter Soldier. It might be spinoffs of the different developing story arcs, like bringing in Val or whatever we want to call her, and her probably the semblance of that kind of Suicide Squad-esque group of anti-heroes, including U.S. Agent and likely Zemo, amongst other potential villains. I could see them doing a whole season on that and the development of that. The one thing that I saw towards the back half of the season, and I think what Disney pays particular attention to, particularly Kevin Feige, is the internet reaction to characters. And I think the internet, while it wasn't kind to the character John Walker, they were particularly kind to the actor, Mr. Russell, in terms of how good he was in terms of bringing that character to life. And it seems that even in the last episode, they started to try to make him more likable. Like
which I didn't necessarily like. I thought that was a weird choice.
It was very it was from left field. But they made him an ally. He's like nodding in approval. He's almost like happy to give up the mantle. You think he's going to be like a huge villain, and it turns out he's just like, he's all aboard. And then, and we'll get into it when we talk about the specifics of the episode, but it gets a new moniker and is all stoked about it. And he seems to be like a goodish guy again, an anti-hero of sorts. So really interesting how that kind of took a left turn, especially with our predictions coming into, or yours in particular, in terms of being like, he's going to be the big bad, which there really
wasn't a big bad in this show
at all.
No, there was no real. It's funny, as much I loved this show. It wasn't perfect, but I really, really loved it. But now, like, talking out loud about it, there really wasn't a big bad. I still feel like we said last episode, the Flag Smashers, their storyline to a certain extent just, I think, got cut. Whether it was true about they had more of a virus storyline. I know Sebastian Stan has come out and say that's not true, but even if it was, I mean, he signed a million NDAs that he can never say that's true, at least not for a long time. I just thought, they never seemed like an actual foe for Sam and Bucky and everyone else. Like, I was never really afraid of like them, or that they wouldn't at the end of the day beat them.
Yeah, episode 1, I felt like they were going to be this terrorist organization trying to wipe out half the population, and that they were going to be a huge threat, an imminent threat to the world that we're exploring. And it just felt more like, you're going to hate this comment, but it felt like a Disney watered down, everybody's a good guy. And it's to your point earlier in our podcast episodes about, maybe changing direction of the story in terms of not using a pandemic or something from a disease perspective being the imminent threat. It feels like they probably did, because it felt bigger in the beginning in terms of what those Flag Smashers were. And I feel like certain scenes were filmed prior to coronavirus still made it in and made the story seem almost bigger than it actually was going to end up. And then it almost kind of took like a left turn. For example, in this episode, there is a scene where the remaining surviving Flag Smashers are being carted off in a militarized vehicle. And similar, it's almost as if Flag Smashers are the new Hydra, similar to like Hail Hydra. The guy says, what is it? One world. What's their quote?
I know, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's like one world, one piece or something. I don't want to butcher it. I don't remember what it is, but yes, they said what they've been saying the entire series.
Right. And then carts them off, and you think, okay, this is a bigger conspiracy. This is going to lend to another season. And then boom, Zemo's butler
that was amazing.
Eliminates any chance of that happening, which was,
it's funny. I didn't realize immediately that was his butler. I mean, I knew Zemo was, behind it when they showed him right after, but in the beginning, I didn't realize it was his butler. That makes that scene even that much better. I just want to show with him and his butler.
Yeah, well, that the Zemo is Batman of the bad guys, which is hilarious. But yeah, so before we've been already diving into the episode. Before we do, there's a lot out there. First off, the cultural influence of this show after the reveal of Sam Wilson as Captain America has been massive, overwhelmingly positive. Almost anybody and everybody is a huge Anthony Mackie fan and a massive fan of him taking on the Captain America mantle. In my opinion, Anthony Mackie encompasses what that character is supposed to be more so than I think Chris Evans was able to do. And I think, and no disrespect to Chris Evans, I think he did an amazing job with the Steve Rogers character. I just think it's such a great casting and a great opportunity to bring Sam into the fold as Captain America. I think it's the perfect next phase for this character, and all the ideals of Captain America are perfectly captured. And this episode really demonstrates that in an emotional and powerful way. What do you think?
I totally agree. And one thing that I really loved, and to give some examples, so like basically the Monday after the episodes, they kind of drop new promotional material. Normally for the Disney Plus shows, the Marvel Star Wars, it's been like a character poster. So the final one for the finale was Sam as Captain America, and all of our social media, any like handle that was like for Captain America, Disney actually scrubbed Chris Evans off of everything, and it's now just Anthony Mackie.
Mhm.
And I like how they're calling, like, he is Captain America. It's not like he is the new Captain America. He's not Sam Wilson's version of Captain America. He is just Captain America. That is something that I really love that they're doing with this, and like going forward, it's just like that he just took on the mantle, and I really love that because I think he is perfect. He's coming out of this is now, I think, one of my new favorite characters. I've always
Yeah.
liked Captain America, but he was kind of whatever. Like, I didn't love him, but he was a fun character. He just didn't gravitate towards me a bunch like the other Avengers. But now I can see him becoming one of my like favorites, if not the favorite of the Avengers who are probably going to be going forward.
Yeah, so Captain America been on screen now, part of the MCU as a superhero for over 10 years, right? But all it took was Anthony Mackie taking on the moniker to get me to buy the Captain America shield for a stupid, ridiculous price. I bought a toy, got the shield behind me. I would love to show it right now, but I'm traveling. But whoa, I went and got this prop. This thing is the coolest. I got a room full of movie props and posters, but this is my new favorite thing. I mean, the highest quality Captain America shield, and all it took was Anthony Mackie flying through a building and landing. They go, "Who are you supposed to be?" And he goes, "I'm Captain America." And it's
What
like,
I told you he was
yes,
going to have the wings.
you did. He doesn't have a vibranium costume. He just has wings and a new red wing and all sorts of cool tech. The wings are certainly upgraded from what we've seen thus far in the movies, which we've seen some new capabilities, which is great. And it seems to be, instead of, you and I had kind of theorized about, oh, maybe he, because he's not a super soldier, he's going to have like a vibranium costume and things to protect him. But it seems like he's utilizing the strength of the wing's propulsion as his strength as a combatant, in terms of how he fights against these super soldier enemies. He's using that propulsion to generate strength, which is really cool, unique. And we got to remember, right? Sam Wilson is a human. He doesn't have any extraordinary abilities other than some pretty cool acrobatics and some to me, I wonder if they can expand on his character in terms of ultimately, does he end up taking the serum? Is he another Steve Rogers in terms of just being so genuinely good of a human, or if they're going to continue on this, hey, he's not a super soldier. I feel like they have room there in terms of.
I think they'll continue on with him not. The big thing a lot of people forget was, Steve Rogers had everything besides the build. I mean, he was this puny little twerp. Sam was never in that scenario. Like he was denied from joining the military because he wasn't deemed fit. So that's where these two characters do differ. It's just hard to remember a time when you didn't have the jacked buff Chris Evans playing Captain America, when they like digitally made him look so small. Yeah, it was ridiculous. I was like actually looking back at that movie a few days ago and I was just like, wow.
I watched it last night because and I don't want to get into that yet. I want to get into it when we talk about the episode and what specific scene made me go back and rewatch the first Avenger, because I think as much as I love this episode and as much as I love this show, I feel like they kind of, in a certain scene, which we'll talk about, they kind of crapped all over the whole process of Steve Rogers becoming Captain America. And I think it's a really important topic to address in terms of being a nerd and in terms of the character of Captain America. And I want to talk about it. But I guess, there's a lot to get into with the episode, but I had a fun thing I wanted us to get into before we talk more Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it was something that got posted by Barstool Sports, and I sent it to you.
Yep.
And it was basically a list of like 12 franchises. And those, I'll list off some of them, but it was basically the MCU, DC, 007, Mission Impossible, Jurassic Park, Star Wars, and John Wick, and a couple others, Harry Potter. And it said, you can only have 3 in terms of being able to rewatch or watch further installments of the franchise. Which 3 would you choose? And which 3 would you choose?
My number 1 would definitely be Star Wars. Number 2, I'd continue with Marvel. 3 is where I struggle. I'm a fan of all those franchises. And obviously this, you can just tell from the name of our podcast, Nerds Be Heard. I'm a huge nerd and I love all those franchises. And I really struggle thinking about this, but I feel like I would actually go with DC just because there's a plethora of characters as well, where the other ones I came close to, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. The new Fantastic Beasts movies I like, but I don't need them. And even like, I love Mission Impossible, but at the end of the day, though, like, and even the John Wicks of the world, they're more, and even James Bond, like they're more just action movies that don't necessarily, they're different, but you can bundle them up kind of being the same, if that makes sense. I know you may not agree, because I mean, I love them, but like most of the stories are one way or not similar, where I feel like I can get a bunch of different characters with those 3 franchises.
I think that's a very good way to view it. And I struggle with this because as much of a nerd as I am in terms of comics, I'm also just a movie nerd in general. And there are certain franchises that excite me and that keep me running to the movie theaters, right? Right now, DC is not that, and it sucks because some of my favorite comic characters are DC, but I feel like they need to just scratch the whole thing and start over, with the exception of maybe the Aquaman and maybe Wonder Woman franchise, but the latest was crap. For me, I care a lot about Batman, but we have so many iterations of Batman that I've watched 1,000 times each that I'm like, okay, maybe I just have fatigue with the characters and how they've just not done a good job like Kevin Feige's done with this, with the MCU. So I'm actually eliminating DC, which is
I'm
crazy.
surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm eliminating Jurassic Park, and I'm eliminating Harry Potter. So, but then it leaves me with this insane choice, right? I have to pick John Wick as one of the ones I keep because I am definitely the largest Keanu Reeves fan in the history of the world. I get so excited when the John Wick movies comes out. I've seen each John Wick at least, and not exaggerating, at least, also I saw it 100 times. 100 times, a lot of times to watch a movie. But realistically, I've seen each probably about 40, 50 times. I'm obsessed with the John Wick franchise.
Yeah, you made me watch John Wick. Like I always wanted to watch it, but I never got around to it. Like, you have to watch this movie now. So I did, and it's an awesome series.
The franchise is amazing. I love practical effects. I love that Keanu Reeves does his own stunts. And I even went and met, Chad Stahelski, the director, and, did a Q&A. Like, those are just phenomenal flicks. And if you're into, martial arts, and if you're into firearms, and it's just, and cars, it's all just a perfect combination of those. So John Wick can be a comic series if you really want it to be. There's so much backstory that they're still developing. I need more. I want them to make 100 of those things until Keanu Reeves can no longer walk. I just freaking love those movies. But then now I got two choices left, and we've got Star Wars, we've got the MCU, we've got 007, and we've got Mission Impossible. Now,
Fast and Furious didn't make that chart.
You know what? And believe it or not, I would eliminate Fast and Furious. That franchise, to me, while it's still, it still has a close. It's close to me in terms of it's like my favorite movie growing up, but it died with Paul Walker, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if you can see that. Rest in peace. That's a sticker of Paul Walker. And then here's another one that says tuna, no crust. You probably can't see it. But I would actually eliminate that franchise. I think it died with Paul, and I had my fair share of those movies. But so my next one I'm going to eliminate is Mission Impossible. Not because, God, it's so hard to say, because
I know that's a hard one. Those are underrated.
They are so underrated, and they actually get better every single movie. Right.
Let's talk about that. I mean, there's not many franchises where you can say that gets better every time. And I know you and I are the minority in this, but we love Tom Cruise, and he is
legend,
unreal. I mean, that guy does everything it takes to get that practical effect. He does those insane stunts. I mean, the guy's crazy what he does. That was one that it hurt for me to like not pick. But now you're making me rethink it. Maybe I should have gotten rid of DC. That was just like the fanboy in me that doesn't want to get rid of it. But I'm gonna let you continue. I was just like, Mission Impossible is just so good.
No, it is. And so, no, I think, and honestly, on this podcast, we should go and review those, because, the franchise is almost, I look at it in two phases. And the first phase is like decent movies, decent action movies, really cool, but not like, oh my God, these are game changing, amazing, I'm running to the theater. And then Ghost Protocol came out, and it upped the ante and made it a whole new kind of modern action franchise that I think those three installments can be looked at as their own trilogy. And I think this next phase is probably a third trilogy. So it sucks to say that, but those movies are so good, and they do get me running to the movies. But again, Tom Cruise only has so much time left that he can keep doing that type of stuff before it gets, dangerous. And so I have to scratch that. But now this gives me this huge dilemma. Okay. Because now I've got Star Wars. I've got 007, which you're aware I'm a massive 007 fan. I mean, my license plate on my car says 007, right? I mean, it's just I love James Bond. So for me, it's like I can. This is tough because then it's between Star Wars, 007, and the MCU. But
So
I can
think
only
about it this way too, because the way you had started the question, how I answered it was going forward. Okay.
yeah.
So we know Daniel Craig is done. Just think about that. Do you think the 007 franchise can get better or continue to be just as good without Daniel Craig? I'm just throwing that out there for you.
That's a good point. And if this challenge didn't include being able to rewatch, that would be a stronger consideration. But Casino Royale is a top 5 movie of all time for me, not just top 5 like Bond movie, and it's the number 1 Bond movie. It's a movie I watch at least once a year, and it's in my top 5. So to have to never watch that again would be.
I forgot that was part of the challenge. That makes this really tough. I thought it was just really going forward, not never watch again.
Right. And I love rewatching movies because especially ones that you catch something new every single time. And yeah. So, but let the MCU I'm keeping. All right. So now it's down to 007.
I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna get rid of my beloved Star Wars.
Well, well, I love what Disney has done with the MCU. I do not love what they've done with Star Wars. And so for me, unless it changes hands, I'm not all that stoked on the new installments outside of the Skywalker franchise as I would want to be. I'm going to watch everything. I'm going to go check. I mean, I can't wait for Kenobi. But I can't wait for Kenobi, not because of the filmmakers that are making that. I can't wait for Kenobi because of Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen and what they did in the past and their ties to George Lucas. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to drop Star Wars, which is like blasphemy. But I just 007, that's my jam. And I'm actually excited to see what they do with someone new outside of Daniel Craig. Cause I had this battle this weekend. I had an argument. It was me versus 4 people, 2 guys and 2 girls. And the girls were adamant that Daniel Craig is a horrendous James Bond and he doesn't represent him. He's stale. He's like wooden character and he's not sexy.
They have no idea what James Bond means. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, it was me against them. And the guys are like, oh yeah, completely agree. We grew up on Pierce Brosnan. I'm like, all right, listen, there's a big difference between GoldenEye, the freaking video game. We all have an emotional connection to that, right? The 2, Tomorrow Never Dies. All right. It's just like a horrendous movie.
They're just cheesy.
They're cheesy. Yeah. And so, but I was arguing, and the girls and the guys, they all agreed. They're like, oh, Pierce Brosnan and Sean Connery. Well, I'm like, okay, Sean Connery, stud, great movies for the time. But Daniel Craig took James Bond to the 21st century. He made him realistic. He made it grounded in reality. He made it less cheesy, and he's a cold-blooded killer. And that's what James Bond is. So we had a long, extended argument. I just ultimately ended the conversation with, you guys are wrong. I'm right. Get over it. But I am excited to see, who do they replace him with? Is it someone that is a little bit more charming? Do they try to go back to like Now, I think Daniel Craig is charming as hell. I actually said they do a character study in acting school on the train scene from Casino Royale of how he seduces Vesper Lind. And that's actually a scene study that they do for character development for a female and male actor actress combo because of how the body language and the dialogue drives character development in one interaction. So to me, if you Daniel Craig in that scene is the definition of charisma. If you don't see that, you just don't have a keen eye for acting and you're wrong. So
I mean, I completely agree with you. We don't need to talk about that much further. To me, he is like, I'm a big fan too. Not as big as you, but I'm a pretty big fan. I don't need to watch any of the other films in that franchise other than Daniel Craig's. Like, they're just so much better. Even the ones that aren't as good. Like, I know we've talked about before, like Quantum of Solace, which a lot of people think is a garbage movie. That's a great movie. Like,
yeah, the action sequences are incredible.
Almost everything Daniel Craig touches is good. I'm a big fan. Even though I didn't really love Knives Out, even though I know I'm the minority in that, but
we need Daniel Craig in the MCU somehow.
I agree. And part of me is like I can't get the vibe if he doesn't want to do like big franchise movies anymore. He's just ready to move on from James Bond. I used to think he just didn't want to do like big franchises anymore, but kind of how we talked about last week, I think some of the MCU actors are going to come back. Those are just the movies of the future.
Right.
That's what's going to give them their paydays. Like it's a job for them at the end of the day, even though they already make ungodly amounts of money. They want those big movies. I mean, he's weirdly enough, like Knives Out, like that's turning into a franchise for him, even though I know he took that role thinking that was just like this fun, like indie type movie.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but I would like to see him in a Marvel movie. And I think they could get him.
They should. And I think he could play some sort of aging superhero character of some sort. But, and then conversely, we talked about Knives Out. If they could get Ana de Armas in a superhero flick, I think she'd be awesome in the DC universe as like Catwoman, but we have our new Catwoman, which I think was also awesome casting. But oh man, I think Ana de Armas would have been the perfect Catwoman, Selena Kyle. But anyway, you know what? Too much outside of the MCU. I think we gotta dive into this episode.
Yeah. We'll do that.
So, Charlie.
Yeah.
What happened in the season or potentially series finale of?
Just like the episode before it, this was an immediate continuation. We started right up into the action, how the last one had ended with the Flag Smashers like overtaking that government meeting and New York City taking it down. And it's funny, one thing I want to get at in the beginning of the episode that I want to give my feelings towards, which I would like to hear yours as well. As much as I loved the entrance of Sam, I mean, we see Sam basically immediately in his new Captain America suit. The big shot is you see it, see him flying in the skyline. So you're like, oh my God, here comes the Falcon. And if people weren't aware yet, you probably would assume that he had his new suit on because that's how the last episode ended. But he jumps right into the action and he starts fighting everyone within that building in New York City. I personally didn't like that was his first entrance with the new suit. It ended on such a cliffhanger of him opening it up, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of him like putting the suit on or like getting ready to go to that battle in New York City rather than just like jumping straight into the action. Well, what's your opinion on that?
Well, as I try to not drop my phone every 5 seconds here. I was expecting a big kind of reveal that wasn't just mid-action sequence. And they kind of just brushed it under the rug. Like he's got this new badass outfit. He's a new symbol. Like, yeah, it felt anticlimactic in ways. So I completely agree with you there, but I do love the costume. I do love its comic book accuracy. And I think
Seems
it looks
awesome. I
badass.
love it. I think it's my favorite Captain America costume. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is badass. And yeah, he comes in. So set the scene for me. So where are they? What's going on?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
does this
So
episode start?
so the scene is basically he's coming now, answering, essentially the call that he got at the end of the episode with Torres, that they're seeing that, the attack that's happening in New York. And once again, he flies right into this building and starts fighting your boy. Why can't I think of his name off the top of my head?
Georges St. Pierre Beltrash, the Leaper.
Yes, the Leaper. So he goes right into, fighting him, and he really, he wanted Sam's blood on his hands, and I didn't really think. It's funny, the action sequence is awesome, but at the same time it left me wanting more. I felt like he wasn't that big of a foe for Sam. He kind of handled him pretty quickly, and it was then kind of just, the scene was then him just kind of handling all the flag smashers and everything that was going down in that building in the city. It was very not large in scale. It was pretty compact within that scene. There wasn't that much going on, actually.
Yeah, well, I kind of liked it because all right, so a couple things, right? So he makes his entrance and they're like, "Who are you?" And he doesn't even hesitate. "I'm Captain America," right? And the guy goes, "I thought Captain America was on the moon," which is a great reference to the comedy from episode 1, right? But what's really happening is Carly and the Flag Smashers are trying to make an example with the Global Repatriation Committee or Council. And basically,
GRC.
What's that?
No, continue. I was just saying, it's the GRC, I believe.
Yeah, the GRC. And basically, they're they're bureaucrats, right? They're the people, they're politicians, they're elected officials that are in charge of assimilating people back into society post blip. And so they're the targets, and Carly's trying to make a statement, and Sam goes in and he's there to save the day, though he's not necessarily a fan of the GRC either, based on his own experience with his family and the family business going under and him trying to come back. And it touches on a lot of the things we talked about earlier in the season about how people, you don't think about in these grand scale movies what the ramifications of certain things are. Like, for example, someone disappearing for 5 years and coming back to find that someone else is occupying their home, and life goes on without you. So I felt like the hand-to-hand combat scenes in that scene were practical. They were cool. And it started expanding a little bit of everybody's kind of role and story, because it brought back in Sharon, who meets up with Bucky. So it's interesting. Bucky just walks right in. Everyone noticed.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I'm trying to, not that I didn't I loved this episode, but talking about it now, just trying to think about how that first act was going. Everyone kind of just got to New York City, and they were all this there to save the day. Yeah, you can continue. I'm just
yeah, it didn't develop quick. It's just they take a lot for granted, and they don't explain much. But basically, it's okay, cool. Lieutenant Barnes, come on in. Don't show credentials. We know who you are. And then Sharon shows up with this cool technology similar to Mission Impossible, where she has somebody else's face on, and then all of a sudden it's her, and you're like, okay, is she there to help? Is she there to hurt? Because you got the sense in the last episode, all right, she's working for the other team, she's batting for the other team. So when
I saw that happen, not to interrupt you, I was like, wow, I'm gonna maybe be wrong about this. They made me think for a hot second that I was wrong about her her outcome, but continue.
No, I knew right off the bat because I knew she was playing double, triple agent, and that she was utilizing their resources to penetrate, but trying to get back close to Carly and broker some kind of deal. So, which is exactly what happened, right? They go in now. Bucky is in full form out there kicking ass again with his metal arm and riding motorcycles, chucking motorcycles, kicking ass, super soldier style. And all of a sudden, Bucky's, in the middle of fighting, and homeboy John Walker shows up, and next thing you know, he's helping out.
Yeah, it was so strange. Like it was just like everything he had done, he realized was wrong. And it's like he wanted to come save the day, but he's still pretending to be Captain America, which is also interesting.
And he's got that puny shield that with one shot from a flag smasher starts getting shattered. And but he's out there and he's trying to help, and him and Bucky have an interaction where it's like it's friendly banter, and you're like, what's going on here? Is this going to be like some US agent White Wolf kind of bromance? Are they going to start appreciating each other? It just felt weird. I don't know what they were trying to do there, but it was kind of out of left field, and I was a little bit kind of weirded out by that whole scenario. But you know what? He's doing his part. He's trying to help out. And so the two of them are fighting off people. Sam's taking on Baltrosh Leaper, and then Carly and Sharon catch up with one another. And Sharon's basically trying to broker another deal, like, join me. I need you working for me again. And Carly's basically like, you're nothing without me. You just want your muscle back. And she's like, without me, what power do you have? And Sharon goes, more than you. And you're like, okay, what the heck? Who is she? What connections does she have? We find out for sure that she's the power broker, but there's something bigger in play. What kind of power does she have? What kind of access does she have? Who else? She didn't just get that way on her own. There is somebody else behind the scenes playing these strings, and I'm wondering if it's Val or who it's going to be. Something bigger at play, which we get into later in the episode, or I guess in the post-credit scene, which we'll talk to later. So then, what happens next? So Carly and Sharon are interacting, and
yes.
Go ahead.
I'm trying. Yeah. So they're interacting, and then the fights then gets brought into there, and Sam ultimately joins them, and he's trying to talk to Carly and whatnot, and Sharon, and this whole time, as we're saying, Sharon's playing double agent. Like Sam and Bucky, even to the end, like they have no idea that Sharon's bad, and ultimately, she finds a way to put an end to Carly, and then no one, like the quote unquote hero, Sam and Bucky, have no idea that happens. And then she plays, that she got into like a scuffle with her, which I thought was interesting, that they're, how much power she actually did have with everybody. Like you said, it's who is she working for? I know the whole time we predicted that she would be the power broker, but it's how did she get that powerful, like you said? And I feel like that's going to be the big part of her story going forward.
Yeah, and they're obviously trying to develop her story further, because they kind of come back to her in the post-credit scene and basically indicate a future with her being like another double agent with the U.S. government, which we'll get into. But essentially, what ends up happening is in the battle, Sharon gets shot. It goes, it's an in and out kind of wound. And then that kind of leads to this altercation between Sam and Carly. where Carly ultimately has Sam cornered. She can basically take him out, and Sharon, kaboom, shoots Carly 3 times in the stomach, I think it was, which was basically the indicate. This was like Sam was playing Captain America, right? I can connect with you. We can get through this. You don't have to do the same type of role he's been playing all season. And then it comes down to, he's a human. He's about to meet his end, and he seems prepared to. And then, as far as he's concerned, Sharon shows up to save him, which ultimately leads to what he's been promising her all season, which is the pardon.
The pardon.
And so that leads to its own kind of nuanced ending of the episode. But so after that all happens, basically, Sam carries Carly out and flies her to basically the center where all the media is, where the GRC is after they've all been kind of saved. There's a bunch of kind of side scenes happening central to that main story arc where, like, both what's his name, John Walker and Bucky are trying to save like a busload of people that are about to fall over
water, over a cliff.
Yeah, over a cliff, or it's like a parking garage.
No, yeah, you're right.
And you see John Walker with his super strength trying to hold on to them so they don't crash. You see Bucky trying to looking on desperately, how am I going to save them? And then when it's about to finally fall, Sam shows up with his wings, and you could see that the propulsion in his wings has this, enough power to give him almost like super strength, and he's carrying a bus, which is like, okay, so this guy can hold his own as Captain America. He can hold his own amongst gods and super soldiers, and he's going to use technology to his advantage. So he saves the day. He ultimately brings Carly back to the center and tries to get her help so that she can survive, contrary to like what you saw with John Walker, where he's killing people and showing no remorse, and why he got stripped of the title. And on live television, Sam Wilson / Captain America gives a lecture without knowing that he's really being recorded. He gives a lecture to the GRC. And in that lecture, it's a really powerful moment, but it basically, he starts kind of telling them that they can't refer to these refugees and these terrorists as refugees and terrorists, that you can't be name calling and outcasting people, that there's a reason for their uprising. There's a reason. And this goes back to what we were saying, where there's no villains on this show. It's more of like, all these different people with different purposes, and they try to almost ground all of them in some sort of common good theme, that they're not evil. They're just trying to be heard, and they're trying to be represented. And it's Disney's way of being extremely PC, and insert what's happening in or what the perception of what's happening in modern day media to what is happening in the show. And so he gives a speech about, you can't outcast people, you can't treat people this way. There's always going to be another organization. There's always going to be another Carly, and if you don't start treating everyone fairly and thinking about the greater good, you're going to have more and more of these situations. And so he's basically trying to play devil's advocate and show that, he can unite the world under one common theme. And they're like, you just don't understand. And he's like, what don't I understand? I'm a black man dressed in the stars and stripes. What do you think I don't understand? You think I don't realize that every time I put this outfit on, I have half the world hating me for it, right? And it zooms in on John Walker's face, and he's like, I agree. Like, this is, it's a heavy shield to carry, basically, right? A pun on words. But and then he gets into it, and he's like, we have to, you guys have the power. You have the same power as a misguided teenager and the same power as a god like Loki, which is basically saying like we've had all these crazy things happen on Earth with these crazy enemies, but you have that same power to change the world with positive change, with reform, with opening borders, with they really, they really,
yeah.
they look.
They made it relatable though. I mean,
It did.
it's either, I know some people may have issues with it, but I kind of liked it how real this felt like to me out of any Marvel movie / show. This was the most grounded in reality I felt like a Marvel property has ever been on the screen.
Yeah, I agree. And I texted you after that speech, and I was like, "Oh man, they just, I just turned completely PC. Like he sold me because Anthony Mackie's just so good at what he does, and he's such a powerful actor." But yeah, I think they did a really good job with this whole series in terms of grounding it in reality, exposing things and exposing the way people feel and how they feel about their representation in modern day society. And I think it made it really relatable and grounded in the experience of millions of Americans. And so I thought they did a really good job with that. I thought that was really the pivotal moment where you're like, okay, Anthony Mackie is Captain America, and it's great. But this was this scene that made me want to go back and rewatch Captain America: The First Avenger. And the reason I did was because while it was a powerful speech and while it was extremely emotional and moving, I did feel like he said, "I'm not white, blonde hair with blue eyes." And like kind of made it seem like Captain America was chosen on the merit of his skin color and his eye color. And then I was like, wait, that's not really how it went down. And I get it with like future iterations of Captain America, like obviously what happened with Isaiah and things like that. Cool. But I went back and I watched the first Avenger, and, it was circumstance, fate, and with Steve Rogers trying to enlist 1,000 different times in the army so that he could make a difference in World War II, and just circumstance that the inventor of the serum was listening to his conversation with Bucky. Like, I don't have a right to do anything less than every soldier that's out there fighting for our freedom. And he sees this character, and it's not on the merit of his skin color. It's not a merit of who he is as a in society. It's his personality. It's who he is inside. And that's the quote that why Steve Rogers was selected. It's like, he's a great human being, and was worthy of the mantle. The serum amplifies who you are. And so I think they almost did a disservice to Steve and to why he was selected to take the serum, and that character, I don't know. I just thought they
let me I want to give my 2 cents on that, because I don't necessarily agree. I don't really think Sam's purpose in saying that was necessarily to tarnish Steve's legacy. It was more him kind of, speaking out to the Isaiahs of the world. Because, Isaiah had mentioned that multiple times, kind of saying, if I was the blue-eyed, blonde hair person, they would have taken care of me. I wouldn't have spent 30 years in prison. I would have been the face of America. I took a more of just like, hey, look, I am not that person, and I am now the new Captain America. And like, I took it that as being a powerful moment of him just saying, hey, anyone can do this. It's not about the color of my skin. It's about what is inside.
Right. Well, and I think that was the intention. I feel like they almost, I don't know. It felt like they also
I get what
indirectly
you're
and
saying. It's
accidentally
heavy. It's a
this.
little heavy
Yeah.
handed.
Yeah, and then that's his boy, right? And he's defended Steve multiple times throughout the season, so I give him a pass. But it's like, all right, yeah, you definitely earned it on your own merit. Um, but then that's the other front. I guess it means a lot more in modern day society and how people feel. But to me, like I never. The thing is, until this series, I never looked at Sam Wilson as anything other than Sam Wilson, right? I didn't really. I know it's almost a cliche, but I didn't see color, right? I saw Sam Wilson, who I thought was always a great successor to Captain America, and race never even crossed my mind until this series, right? So I guess but I guess that for other people, maybe maybe it's different and that's what people's experience is like, and so it's hard to understand, but it's good to appreciate, and I think that's what this series did a good job with doing, is representing the feelings of millions of Americans, and how they feel they're looked at by certain people, and so I think that's disappointing that it's ever been that way, especially since that's never something like that's never even crossed my mind. So, but you mentioned Isaiah, and I think that brings up the. I hate to admit this, but I freaking teared up
Me too.
when Sam, he has such a connection with the Isaiah character and what he went through and his experience, and he basically recreates the Smithsonian timeline and the story of how the Captain America story unfolds. They have like a whole dedicated exhibit to Captain America and Steve Rogers, and he basically gets a statue made of Isaiah and a whole plaque explaining what he did for America and as a soldier. And he basically goes and takes Isaiah and says, "I have something to show you." And you see Isaiah just break down, and he's just so happy. His kind of story arc comes to a head, and it's like, okay, everything I went through, this is a ode and a recognition of what I've done, and that I'm a hero. And it was just so powerful and emotional, and I was tearing up because it was just like, oh my god, like that struck a heart chord, unlike anything. And I told you when we met that Isaiah character early on that I was going to be uh, attached to that character for a long time, and he was gonna stick out in my memory because it owed to the actor, to the writing of the character, and to Anthony Mackie and how he interacts with him. Just so powerful.
It's such a beautiful ending to his story arc in the show. Like it really came full circle. And I just, yeah, I was crying. I didn't just tear up. I was legitimately crying. Like I
Like
thought it was,
sobbing.
I just thought it was very, very moving.
Yeah.
And he couldn't have done anything. That was just such a perfect tribute for him. Like something so simple, but he really just felt that no one cared or what he did or sacrificed for. And I'm like, I want to tear up just talking about it now. It was great.
Yeah, it is extremely powerful, and I hope it's not the last time we see Isaiah. I hope he serves as like a mentor of sorts to Sam Wilson, and maybe he gets a cameo or something in the movie. But I think that actor is phenomenal, and I think the character is a great influence for Sam, and a really pivotal part in Sam's development into Captain America. Without Isaiah, Sam doesn't become Captain America.
100%.
So I'd like to see further story development with that character if possible. Yeah, and then so you know in terms of the episode basically ends with the world accepting Sam as the new Captain America. John Walker meets up with Val again and gets a new name, U.S. agent, and a new costume. And he's like, I'm back. He's all excited, right? So now he's going to be working for whomever Val is, whatever that ends up being, this band of anti-heroes, whatever direction they go in. I think that's going to be a bigger role, whether it's in season 2 or in the future iterations of the movies. And then we get a post-credit scene, which was our beloved Sharon. Did you watch it?
I watched it. Actually, I thought it was one of the most disappointing post-credit scenes ever for Marvel. I was actually really upset that there was only one as well. Like in WandaVision, there was 2, and I expected there to be another one, and there was just that. So just to tell everyone, it was essentially she, does get her pardon, and she's then reinstated. And she turns around, walks out, and she has this this look on her face, and then she makes a phone call and essentially is saying how she has clearance for everything, and she's going to take all this information and use it to continually move forward her quote unquote villain agenda. And it ended. I just thought, maybe it's just because I love this stuff and I predicted it the whole season. Like, I was a little disappointed that was the big twist, or we were supposed to be surprised by that. Like, I said she was bad the entire time. And now it's just okay, yeah, maybe they're turning her. She ultimately was the big bad of the series. How we're saying there wasn't a clear-cut villain, because John Walker definitely didn't end up being the big bad villain I thought he was going to be. He definitely was a bad guy, but ultimately at the end, as we said, he was a little bit redeemed, but he's going to go on. They're going to be like those anti-type heroes. He never really looks at himself as a bad guy. He never will, even though he's done bad things. Where Sharon, she knows what she's like. She knows she's bad. Because she's pissed at the world, and she now she played Sam, which is really that pissed me off as well. That she totally took advantage of her relationship that she had built with him to now ultimately probably screw him over.
Yeah.
I actually think she's going to be probably one of the villains of Captain America 4.
Well, we talked about this. I think that Sharon is, as a human, was a saint and a great woman. I think this is a Skrull.
Yeah, I really thought that. I agreed with you, but I don't anymore, actually. I don't think she's a Skrull. I don't think that they're going to continuously do that. They've already shown some people that are important be Skrulls. I do think there's going to be maybe another main character that's going to pop up that has been a Skrull that we didn't know, but I don't think she is one of them. That cheapens her story arc, in my opinion.
I muted myself.
I don't know if you completely disagree. I just
I think it can go both ways, but I think it just seems so out of left field that she went from Steve Rogers love interest / helpful agent to this big bad villain, that's this broker of all things.
Well, I think part of the problem is we're forgetting. She at the end of the day wasn't an important enough character to get her entire arc flushed out. And I know we mentioned this in a previous podcast, but no one cared about her during those 5 years. It wasn't like she was someone who disappeared. She actually didn't. And, that's 5 years is a long time to have lived that life she did. And not one person, Steve including, because Steve is someone who didn't disappear. He didn't seek out to help her,
Yeah.
which probably really, struck a chord with her. She's like, these people don't care about me. I need to, fend for myself. And I think she was the makings of like a true, person who turns to the dark side.
Yeah. Well, like I'm sure we're
Yeah, we'll
gonna
say.
see more.
I like that we don't necessarily agree, so it'll be a fun debate in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. I think a lot of the predictions that we had this season came to light, yours more so than mine. Um, I guess in terms of this series and how it stacks up, how would you rank this compared to um WandaVision? Better, worse, same?
If I could only watch one, I probably would pick this. Just because of the nature of the series. I thought WandaVision was something, it was so creative and so different and original. That's where I give that, like in that category, that gets a little bit of a notch up. But if I had to pick, just like before when we had to pick the franchises that would get rid of or continue, I just feel like this had the more like badass Marvel, superhero action that I like crave. But I
Yep.
still loved WandaVision. And the thing that's great is I like that they were different. I would be upset if I was saying, you know what, they were kind of the same and I just like this one better because I like this character better. I think that's what's going to be great about all the Marvel shows on Disney Plus. They're all going to hit a different type of genre, where they're all just going to live together beautifully.
How long till Loki?
Loki comes out in June.
So we have what end of June,
I think it's like mid-June.
mid June. So we have like 6 or 7 weeks between series, right?
June
What this?
11th.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we got about 6 weeks, and so first off, I think Loki's another series we're gonna want to recap every single week. But what I think this series has done for me is make me want to go back and rewatch all these. I went and watched the first Avenger, and I forgot how incredible these early movies were and how everything today connects back pretty well. They didn't, as much as Kevin Feige is a genius, it's not like every single, these first iterations, it's not like he had this mapped out to the end. Like, all these characters are going to develop this way and it's going to go in this direction. He had somewhat of a map, but
I think he has a more
cool.
detailed map than you think.
Yeah.
That's why it works so well.
It works well, but you go back and you rewatch and you're like, okay, well, certain things that they're taking for granted in these newer series and movies that you go back and you're like, it wasn't really the case, like what we talked about earlier. I don't know.
No, that's fair. I mean, I'm not saying the guy know the exact same plan. All movies change, production, changes within throughout the entire process of a movie, but he definitely, like, I'll go back to, at the end of the day, I'm a massive Marvel fan, but the Star Wars is just a little bit above it, and that is something that they clearly did not have a plan for with the sequel trilogy, and it shows. Where in the Marvel movies, you may feel like they retcon something here or there, but it's just because, they probably thought of a little bit of a better idea, and the little nuance that made it maybe not 100% connect was more worth it for the story going forward.
Yeah, fair. It was kind of cool, by the way, rewatching the first Avenger and seeing how different Bucky was back then. as a supporting character, kind of a
Hey, Matt. We may have lost Matt. So speaking of Bucky, I'm just going to continue to go on. Hopefully, when he rejoins, we can talk a little bit about what his thoughts were. But we kind of didn't finish talking about how his story ended. So one thing that Bucky's kind of storyline throughout was, he was really trying to make amends. He was seeing a therapist, and she kind of had him write down a list of names of people he had done wrong, and he was, going around making his amends. And the final person he really needed to check off that list was the older gentleman that he kind of befriended and would have lunch with every week. And he had still been grieving over his son's death, and he had no idea how his son actually died. And Bucky was actually holding the weight of knowing that he actually murdered him in cold blood. That was a scene we saw in the first episode. So it really came full circle. Sam kind of told him, you got to stop making excuses. You got to, take accountability for your actions. And so ultimately, Bucky did that. And, it was really hard for him to have to admit that he was going to, shatter this guy's heart and, probably lose a really good friend along the way. But unfortunately, it's something Bucky needed to do to move on. So you see him, go knock on his apartment door, and he tells him the story that, I need to tell you how your son died. And it was, the Winter Soldier killed him. And then he was like, that was me. It was a really powerful scene. Bucky then kind of just leaves. And then later on, you see him walking by the restaurant that he would frequent with this gentleman and that woman that he kind of went on a date with in the beginning. And he doesn't really see her. I mean, he doesn't really see Bucky out the window, but she sees him. And, it was just kind of a little beautiful moment. And, Bucky just felt good with himself, and he kind of just moved on. But that was kind of how he ended it. So that's where his character kind of leaves off. So he has a lot to move on with in that instance. Hey, Matt, you back?
I am back.
You got double video going on, double audio. Hello. All right, we're having some technical difficulties. As Matt had said before, he's traveling for business, so I'm assuming he doesn't have the greatest internet connection. But that was just the last thing I wanted to touch on. So hopefully when he gets back, he can give his final thoughts on Bucky, because we kind of did pass over that a little bit. Not that it was anticlimactic, but it kind of just was interesting that that's how his story ended. So he really has, who knows where he's going to go going forward.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can
All
hear
right.
you, Tony Stark.
I joined the meeting 3 separate ways. Yes, I am having technical difficulties. This is what happens on the Nerds Be Heard podcast. We're nerds, and sometimes we stumble, sometimes we fall, sometimes we trip over ourselves. It's what Peter Parker would do. It's what I do.
All
But
good.
actually,
When you left, I continued the conversation because I didn't want it just to go dark. I started talking about, because we kind of jumped over Bucky's ending. And I kind of just, let the listeners kind of know where we left off with him. What was your thoughts on that?
yeah, I'm glad you just brought that up, because for Bucky is one of my favorite characters, and I felt like this brought, and that's why, in the beginning of the episode I was talking about how I feel like they did him a disservice with, not giving him the title change the way they did Sam, in that, he really shaked himself of the Winter Soldier. He finally finished his book, crossing the names off the list. He reconciled what his demons and what he had to go do. It brings his story back to the first episode, where he befriended that older gentleman, and whose son that he ended up murdering as the Winter Soldier, and he was trying to reconcile by doing good deeds for that guy, but not actually giving him the closure that he needed. And so he gives the closure by admitting, I killed your son. And it was such an emotional scene where he breaks down and he's like, well, why would you do that? And he said, I had no choice. And to me, those words were more meaningful than I think you initially realize until you really think back on the episode. But he's like, I think when he said those words, he was recognizing for the first time that he is not the Winter Soldier. That was not him. That's not who he is as a person. And when he says, I had no choice, I think he's finally coming to terms with the fact that he can accept the actions that he did while under a brainwash, and he can move on. And he finally accepts that I didn't have a role in this. This wasn't me. Who I am is a good man, and I can go be a better person, a better soldier, a better friend. And you can see that in his development, the way he's interacted with Sam, the way he's influenced Sam to become Captain America, to take on the shield, and the way that he has, he's looked at as a hero. I think he even looked at one point, someone said thank you when he saved them, and you could see he's almost like taken aback by that, like, oh wow, like I'm a hero. Like people are looking at me as a hero. They're saying thank you. Like, and I think it changed who he was. And I think, I think he's really encompassing the White Wolf moniker. And I think they should rid him of that burden of being called the Winter Soldier. I think he's finally shaken that. So I just think Sebastian Stan is an incredible, has done an incredible job with this character. Has definitely come a long way from an acting perspective. He really captures every scene that he's in, and I love what they did. I love how his story really came full circle. That is probably one of the better arcs in the MCU to date.
I totally agree. And like the more and more I think about it, they really did a disservice by ending that title card by not changing his name too. It didn't bother me as much until we were talking about it right now. Like, I know this was really Sam's story, but ultimately it was, I mean, Sam was a star, but it was still Bucky's story. And he came full circle beautifully, just as much as Sam did. Very different, but still came full circle into a new man. And I don't like how it ended up saying the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
It was, though, honestly, the weight, I realized watching this series, I realized seeing the cultural effect of Sam and Anthony Mackie taking on the Captain America, how much it means to so many people, that I do kind of appreciate that they didn't try to distract from that. And I think Disney does a good job at understanding just how deep their impact is. And what really hit me was Anthony Mackie shared a post. It was a doctored image, but it meant a lot, which was basically a little kid dressed as Captain America. And then him next to that kid in his Captain America costume. And it just spoke to, there are millions of kids that have felt underrepresented in film. in history. That I think Black Panther was one of the first. There's a reason Black Panther was so successful, because it brought a superhero and group of heroes into the cultural spotlight, to give some characters, give people characters to aspire to. And honestly, Black Panther isn't as popular as a character as Captain America, just from a history, comic books wise. And I honestly think that Sam taking on Captain America is a bigger cultural moment than what Black Panther was. Black Panther was the first step, but I think this is the leap forward that's necessary for movies going forward. And I think I'm very happy that Anthony Mackie's the guy to do it. I think it was very fitting, and it moved me. I love Anthony Mackie. I love this character. I love Captain America. I hope they make 10 movies with him. And I'm really happy with what that represents for a lot of people. So,
Dude, you legitimately just took the words right out of my mouth. I actually wanted to say exactly what you said, so I won't really repeat it. But I mean, what Black Panther did that is a cultural phenomenon. And yeah, you're right. The character of Captain America, in terms of the history, is more popular, but in today's society in the MCU, I mean, Black Panther, that's actually one of the characters to beat, in my opinion. But unfortunately, with Chadwick Boseman's very untimely passing, I act like he was my friend. It's just still so upsetting. This couldn't have come at a better time, because you're right. He now is going to be the new person on screen that all those children looked at Chadwick for. Chadwick weirdly has passed the baton to Anthony Mackie, even though both of their character, Anthony Mackie's character debuted before his in the MCU, but he, was a side character. He wasn't the main character, where the Black Panther was, which made it so different. And that's what's also going to be great. I know there's been some debate. People are being like, that the first Asian superhero for Marvel actually isn't Shang-Chi, but he is the first lead. He is the first person who's going to hold a movie on his own. So that's going to also be something that, you and I have been fortunate enough to, get to see ourselves on screen a lot, where, a lot of children didn't get that. So that movie's going to be a lot bigger than I think people realize as well.
Yeah, and it should. I think it should. And there was a reason. Again, said it before. There was a reason Black Panther was so successful, because it inspired every culture, every background, and didn't matter. It was just it was about time, right?
Yep.
And I think you're right with Chadwick Boseman kind of passing, and there's not a clear successor yet in the Black Panther universe, though. It'd be cool if they found a way to bring Michael B. Jordan back in some capacity, yeah, or make Shuri the lead. It's just somehow figure out a way to do that. In the meantime, having Sam Wilson, Captain America, I think it'll be it has been a huge cultural hit, and it's a perfect time for it. And so no better man to do it than Anthony Mackie. He captures the heart of what Captain America is supposed to be, both from a Sam Wilson in the comics perspective to a Steve Rogers in the comics. He really, there's no better actor to do this. This is the guy. So, and coming into this season, I wanted Bucky to maybe put up a bigger run because of the comic books and because of my love for that character. By the middle of the season, I was sold that the worthy wielder of the shield is and forever will be Anthony Mackie. 100%. Sam Wilson deserves the shield.
100%.
Chris Evans is still walking around, living and breathing. I could do without him ever stepping back into the world and it just being Anthony Mackie from here on out.
I agree, but now that you bring that up, I know we both thought that he would have made an appearance in the finale. Are you happy he didn't? Were you upset, or could you really, care less?
I was upset at first, but now that we've kind of said it out loud, and as I'm talking about how, the emotion behind it, it would have taken away from the moment. And I think that the way they did it in the movies was perfect. You can't really redo that scene and make it more powerful. I think he gave the shield to Sam. There's no purpose for Steve anymore other than, making reference to him. And this is Anthony's show now. And that's it.
I do think one way or another, Chris Evans is back as Captain America in some sort of project. There's rumors now. First was like, oh, he's going to be Captain America 4, but now it's going to be a completely different project altogether.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, here's where going back and watching the first Avenger, which I'm going to make the suggestion you and I go back and rewatch the entire MCU and review the movies because I've had a lot of fun watching the first Avenger last week or last night. But it is so, this is going to sound weird, but it's so beautiful how they ended his story. And you know what? I like it being up to interpretation how his life was with Agent Carter. What going back and it reminded me of, so if you remember the credit scene leading up to the Avengers, when Cap wakes up from his 70-year slumber.
Yep.
And he's running through the streets of New York, and they finally catch up to him. And his first comment was, I had a date. Steve Rogers' entire character, the fulfillment of that character all goes back to a love story. And the fact that the Russo brothers were able to bring that back to such a wholesome ending, I'd rather not see what happened. I'd rather just let that be left to interpretation and to our imagination, because it was just a beautiful way to end this story. And I feel like they can only just do a disservice to the character at this point. And honestly, it's somebody else's time to shine as Cap. And I think culturally, we need to just accept that it's just time for someone else to hold the shield and not distract it with other characters still holding the shield.
That's fair. Got me thinking, though, too, now about season 2. What are your thoughts on season 2 actually being called Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and then it's really more about Bucky, not Sam, and then the ends on the title card, Captain America and the White Wolf? I think that would be satisfying to me, because then you get to put Bucky front and stage.
Yeah, because this was really the season of Sam, and I think Sam gets his own movie. And yeah, maybe you center this around Bucky. And I think Sebastian Stan has earned it. So that would be satisfying for me. I do want to see him further develop and see his new role. I'd love to see him in Wakanda more and see how that kind of plays out. I personally think it would be awesome to see him in like, I don't know, I'd see him have a relationship with a Wakandan in some capacity and dive back into that past. So yeah, I'd like to. I'm not done with Bucky. I have a particular fondness for that character, and that would be great. But I don't know if I'd want to wait a whole season for him to just take on the White Wolf mantle. Like, he's not Winter Soldier anymore. He needs to just let that go.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
while it's funny, while during your technical difficulties, I was just thinking to myself, I know he was like, and now I'm going back and kind of when I said, I know he wasn't technically the Winter Soldier still during the series, but he was still struggling and battling with, his journey as the Winter Soldier. And one thing that I really always liked about his character, and I think we mentioned this before, Steve would always make excuses actually for Bucky's behavior, and Bucky never really accepted those excuses. He knew that he was brainwashed, but at the end of the day, he still did it, and he still had to, hold the weight of killing all those people. And
Yeah.
I think it ended with him almost getting rid of that part of his life. I don't think he's 100% there yet. I know he kind of, crossed off all the names, finally told that elderly gentleman that he befriended, but there's still a few more things I think he needs to do. And I think that's maybe what the season could be about. Because the more I think about it, as much as I have my my sweaty for Kevin Feige and everything, that probably was done on purpose because there's something more to what they're going to do with Bucky. I just
Probably.
don't imagine them that being, an afterthought.
Yeah. I agree. And I think, yeah, there's so many characters that they built out on this show now that are going to have a future in the MCU. It's obvious. And yeah, I think I'm excited to see how it plays out, if it's in the movies, if it's in another season. I'm excited to see what happens with the Ward season. I think Anthony Mackie should, and if he doesn't, I'll be pissed. He needs to win an award for this show. And I've never been so emotionally attached to a superhero movie the way I am with this TV show and what they've been able to do with it. And it's just a testament to how great they are at casting, how great they are at writing and building out these characters. But I guess, speaking to emotion, I cannot let this pod continue any longer without us making reference to the day that it is today, which is the 2-year anniversary. 2 years since
Endgame.
Endgame hit theaters.
Crazy. It's insane.
Did you see what, right before we got on, did you see what Robert Downey
Danny
Jr.
Jr. Yeah.
posted?
Yeah.
That made me Google some stuff. And it made me watch a scene that I'd never seen before. Have you seen the scene where after the snap, they deleted the scene, but he had a
With his
whole
daughter.
interaction? Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah. So I watched that and it got me all emotional before we hopped on this call. I'm like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
didn't
Cause that
see
was a
that.
bigger deal because the girl who was casted as his daughter, she's famous. And I knew she was going to be in the movie and then they just cut her. At the time, I was
Yeah.
kind of like annoyed by that because I thought she was going to have a bigger role going forward. But I
Yeah.
think ultimately the Russo brothers had said that it just didn't work with the pacing and you weren't invested in that version of his
Right.
daughter. It was more of the younger version that we met.
I agree. It was an emotional scene to watch as a deleted scene, but I think it would have taken away from the movie itself. So it's just a fond moment to go look at 2 years down the line. But it really, it going, realizing that it's been 2 full years since that movie watching experience, since we really, you know, that was one of the last big movies that we got to see in theaters. And go in a short 2 years, oh, how the times have changed.
I know, it's sad. I'll say, I mean, to me, that's probably the second greatest movie experience I've ever had. It doesn't take the number one for me.
What's number one?
I think number one was to see Force Awakens. There's something about Star Wars coming back. Now, I'm not saying that I enjoyed that movie more than Endgame, but it was just, that's something that you'll never get again. Like, Star Wars have been gone for so long. I know we've been waiting for such a long time by watching all of those movies to get to the final chapter of the Infinity Saga, but it just wasn't the same. There was just, I mean, I remember seeing the first trailer for Force Awakens. I mean, I watched that over and over and over again because it was just, I don't think you'll ever have a movie experience again like that ever, because of the day and age we live in now with IPs, especially that Disney owns everything. There isn't anything that really you could bring back that we haven't had, in my opinion.
Well, agree and disagree. I think I am going to have butterflies going in and seeing Indiana Jones 5. In a way, because it's been we got the.
It's not the same. It's not the same. I know what you mean, but it's not.
Yeah, I get it. I remember the feeling of going in for Force Awakens and it being like, I can't believe I'm about to watch Star Wars again.
And the way Star Wars starts, like with the Lucasfilm logo, and then the crawl. It's just, it doesn't get any better than that for me.
Yeah, that was a great experience. Honestly though, I can't recall another film. So yes, the feeling going into a movie is the best feeling in the world, because you just don't know what to expect and you're so excited. You and I, every Star Wars movie, have worked ourselves up into like all these theories, and we get so pumped, and it's like to a point where we can't, literally, it's like physically daunting to wait another day. I'm always there opening night. And
then I can't go to sleep after the movie either.
Right. Because you're thinking about it. And you're like, do I like it? What did I not like about it? I have to digest everything that I just saw. But what the Russo brothers did so well, unlike any other movie I've ever experienced, is between Infinity War and Endgame. Both times I left the theater with my jaw to the floor. Like, when they ended Infinity War the way they did, I couldn't freaking believe that they just had the balls to do that and then make us wait for the next iteration.
But you had to have known as a fan with any logic that they weren't actually dead.
Right, but
I know I completely agree
wait?
with you. Yes. Hey, at least we only had to wait a year. Normal circumstances, you probably would have had to wait like 3 years.
Yeah, but do you know how difficult that was? I mean,
no, it was it was very difficult.
And then to end it so well, 15 years of filmmaking to culminate in the end of phase 2 that way, where you literally had, I mean, yeah, there's that viral video, but being there in the theater was the exact same. Like when Captain America wields, Thor's hammer, and just the ending of that freaking movie with the snap, everything was just amazing. So perfectly done. I've never experienced anything like either of those movies in theaters before. Yes, the buildup for Star Wars, great. but just the shock factor of that. The only time I've been more like the reaction was more, I guess, visceral and massive was probably just for me when, you know, the ending scene of, you know, Furious 7, because of just being so emotionally attached to Paul Walker. And everyone that was a fan of that series, you saw grown ass men hysterically crying in the theater. Probably those are the three most impactful movie moments in a theater for me, probably ever. I can't think of something
Endgame
else.
had a lot for me too. Not even just with Captain America with the hammer, but like when they all started to come back, like when you see like Chadwick Boseman start walking out, or you actually hear Anthony Mackie, like that was incredible. I started to like get the chills.
Yeah.
Like now I like miss going to the movies.
Yeah, we gotta go rewatch the MCU, because honestly, going back to those early movies, you forget how magical those were in their own right. And
You do.
I mean, I hadn't watched Captain America: The First Avenger. I hadn't watched it in probably 6-7 years until I watched it last night. And I think going back and watching Civil War and things like that will be like game-changing rewatches after we've seen how everything's unfolded. I think,
and your opinions may change about certain movies. You'll maybe realize that Thor Ragnarok's a masterpiece.
The worst movie of all time. You mean SpongeBob in Space? That movie?
I don't mean that movie. I hate when you say that.
That's what it is. I mean, the Hulk is Patrick, or actually more no.
I guess I just love Taika Waititi. Like I just think I don't know. I get his sense of humor, and I just think it's brilliant.
Well, I know you did think Green Lantern was a great movie when it came out, so
did
I
you.
understand.
So.
Ryan Reynolds could do no wrong, in my opinion. I mean, I'm wearing a Deadpool shirt right now, so yeah. I look, not the worst movie of all time.
Yeah, I can't believe you hate that movie so much.
Thor Ragnarok is the worst movie of all time. Yes, I can say that with confidence. I'll rewatch it and give it a second set of eyes. But honestly, to me, the two worst installments in the MCU are Thor Ragnarok and, you're going to hate this, Guardians 2.
Yeah, that's wrong. But
dude, Guardians 2 was garbage.
I mean, it wasn't as good as the first one, but it wasn't garbage.
The first one was incredible. Second one was.
I mean, it definitely wasn't as good, but I really like those characters.
They're great characters, and they were great additions to the Avengers franchise. But hey, you know what we'll do? We're gonna do a full rewatch.
Yeah, we need to.
MCU, and then we're gonna rank them. At the end, we're gonna rank them, and we will come up with the Matt and the Charlie definitive list of ranked MCU movies. We're going to watch it in chronological order. And let's just see what we come up with. Maybe my opinion will change. But, you know, I think Thor Ragnarok is going to be way at the bottom, somewhere around where Captain Marvel is.
Speaking of Thor, did you hear Russell Crowe just flat out like spoiled who he's playing in the new movie?
Zeus.
It's just so funny that these like actors like don't like, there's no way he was allowed to say that. He definitely broke some like NDA that he signed.
He just said I was out Zeusing around or whatever the heck.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, I love, he loves working at, the Disney lot. He gets to go play Zeus. He just like casually like just like dropped in and had no idea what he said. And I love when these actors like say shit that they have no idea the consequences that the internet's going to explode with after. Like in his mind, he's like, what did I say? I just said I'm Zeusing around. Like what? I think that's like amazing casting.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I mean, Russell Crowe is at a point in his career where he's like, I can do and say whatever the hell I want. And
well, yeah, he does not care.
In other news, though, real quick before we sign off on this, first off, this is depressing that we're done with Falcon and Winter Soldier and have to move on because what a great series, and this has been a blast. But I consider the Nerdverse to be more than just DC, Marvel, Star Wars. It's just us being genuine fans of cinema, the movie-going experience, and just watching stories unfold on the big screen and small screen. And there's some movies in the pipeline and that I think are pretty exciting and some news coming out. But like for example, I got to show love for my boy Michael B. Jordan. He is an MCU cast member, and I'm excited for his new movie that comes out this week. Have you seen the trailers for that?
I have, but it's actually not something that's been high on my radar. I want to watch it, but I'm definitely. I know we had texted about this. I really want to watch Mortal Kombat. I haven't gotten to watch that yet.
Yeah, I got to watch Mortal Kombat this week. I'm watching with. I got a group of people. We're gonna socially distance in my movie theater and watch Without Remorse on Friday night, and I'm excited for that. And I feel like I'm screening a movie. It just feels different. I feel like I'm screening a new movie that I'm really excited for, and I'm gonna have the popcorn going, and this week they released Matthew McConaughey and Vin Diesel both released these really moving videos about trying to convince people to go back to the movies and how great of an industry it is and how many people are affected by COVID-19 and how many jobs were affected. One served as like a trailer / kind of invite back to the movie watching experience for Fast and the Furious, which made me like actually think about wanting to see that movie. And then Matthew McConaughey kind of had his own narration as well. And I feel like we're getting so close to that, my favorite pastime, and being able to go experience that again.
Do you have any? I know you said obviously you're excited for Tom Clancy's Without Remorse, and we talked about Mortal Kombat, which we'll have to review both of those. But what had you had any interest in watching Godzilla vs. Kong, or that just not really your thing?
The big CGI fests are difficult for me. I like animatronics.
Even in that aspect?
Yeah, even in that aspect. Like if they did it like the way the original Jurassic Park was filmed, I'd be way in, because I actually think the original Jurassic Park has better special effects than the latest Jurassic World. Because one is a cartoon and the other one was some animatronics.
I completely agree with you with that, but that's because of the wackiness they brought that series into. It's just not. That's like a movie where I love Jurassic Park, but they want to do these over the top CGI effects. Like I feel like there's a difference between like Godzilla versus Kong. Obviously, it's going to be insane, but they don't really have any other choice, in my opinion, to get across what they want to do. Where in Jurassic Park, they're doing it just for the sake to say they can.
Yeah, I guess, but it's like here's the thing. I know if I'm seeing a Tom Cruise movie, that I'm going to watch a movie with some really cool special effects that are grounded in reality, that for the most part are just practical effects. I know if I'm going to see The Rock, it's going to be a bunch of freaking cartoons and a big bald dude, with a green screen. And one excites me, the other doesn't. And I love Dwayne Johnson as a human being. I just think his movies are garbage. So, and I think Black Adam is going to be garbage. And I think, for me, there are so many, what's great CGI movie? You know what's a great sci-fi film? Blade Runner 2049. You know why? It takes place in the future. There's a ton of special effects, but they're not cartoonish. It's not a bunch of CGI monsters. It's something that you feel like, all right, like this feels real. It doesn't feel like Space Jam.
Have you seen that movie looks bad. But have you seen any of the new like Godzilla movies?
I saw the one with Bryan Cranston.
Okay. Because I mean, I know there's tons of content to watch, but when you get around to it, I would recommend the second Godzilla in that. So it came after the King Kong one, but Godzilla King of Monsters. It actually, the cinematography in that movie is amazing. The way they shoot the big, dude, the movie's pretty cool. Like I'm telling you, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised.
I'd rather watch Cloverfield, but hey, I'll go check it out. Because at least Cloverfield, you don't actually see the monster, and you're like, holy crap, this is scary stuff. But all right, I'll go check it out, and maybe I'll watch Kong versus Godzilla. I mean,
Just saying, I don't know.
A giant cartoon gorilla fighting. All right. I mean, I'll check it out. But I am going to watch Mortal Kombat. Although I don't think it'll top the corniness of the original.
I actually have heard it's like ridiculously good. Like if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, you're going to like love it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I heard Kano steals the show.
I heard that too.
So it'll be cool. I'm a Johnny Cage guy, and he's not in it. So I don't know. It's such a weird how, message to the powers that be. I'm available for Mortal Kombat 2, and I would love to play Johnny Cage. So
there you go. Before we go, though, we got to say, I want to bring up one last thing. I know we've gone on for a long time, but the thing that is going to be insane for Marvel, they are going to have their first ever Academy Award winning director directing their next big franchise. So the director of the Eternals, Chloe Zhao, she just won Best Director for Nomadland, which to me, like, it's going to be kind of insane to see a trailer that says direct, like Academy Award winning director.
That would be pretty cool. Did you watch her acceptance speech?
Yep.
Wasn't that such a genuine moment with Brad Pitt?
That wasn't her.
Oh, wait, that wasn't her? Are you sure?
It's a completely different movie.
Oh. So I don't even know who we're talking about then.
No. Yeah,
wait, no. Oh, okay. So this girl's not directing Eternals. See, I got
no, that was an older woman who won for Best Supporting Actress.
Oh. Well, there I go.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah.
That's still a genuine moment with the Brad
yeah,
Pitt,
that was definitely funny. That was definitely funny. But yeah, no, she's like going back again. I know I've brought her up before on this podcast, but getting like amazing talent to come into this world, and that movie's supposedly going to be like unlike anything you've ever seen before. I'm so excited for this phase.
Yeah, well, you like what, every single actor that got cast in that role, with the exception of, well, I don't know if you're an Angelina Jolie fan, but like, have you? So the guy we've talked about potentially playing James Bond, right? So Richard Madden, he's in it with his boy Kit Harington.
Kit Harington. Yep.
So it's like, let's bring back the whole Game of Thrones. Yep, Kamal is shredded.
Unreal.
Holy crap, he is shredded. He is Chris Evans
he makes
mixed with Chris Hemsworth mixed with The Rock, shredded. How did he do that? He's on steroids. I'm sorry, he's got to be.
He definitely looks like it, even though he has flat out said that's not true. Yeah, I don't think he's the type of guy who would like lie about that, in my opinion. I mean, I think he got this opportunity, and I mean, I don't know what Marvel said to him, but I do know that it was in Chris Pratt's contract when he got the Star-Lord role. He was not the favorite from everyone, but it was James Gunn's guy, and they were like, you need to get in ridiculous shape for this role, and he did. Yeah. So I mean Kamal brings it to a whole new level, but I'm just curious how long that will last, because that's definitely a big change in lifestyle. I know he had made a comment that his like wife is like not into it, which is funny.
Yeah. Well, it's been years now. So they announced the cast like 2 years ago, and he's just getting more jacked by the day. And have they even started filming yet?
Oh, that movie's done. It's done. Yeah. So
really?
that's coming out in November. That's going to be the big.
What? Where's the trailer?
Well, they probably haven't done the trailer yet because the Shang-Chi is the next movie coming out. I'm guessing that's going to drop in Black Widow. But like, in my opinion, why there hasn't been a trailer yet.
Yeah, and he's still been like.
But because there's no way in hell he's signed on for one movie, so he's got to stay that way.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I'm starting to Richard Madden or whatnot. I'm starting to actually buy into this whole James Bond. I think he could bring the charm and still be a little bit gritty.
Well, he's exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of this. That would be like a combination of in my opinion, he could be a combination of a Daniel Craig, Pierce Brosnan, Sean Connery type Bond.
I think he can. He just needs to get rid of the boyish charm and make it more gentlemanly. I've been watching The Bodyguard on Netflix, and he's got his Scottish accent, and he just sounds like a boy, instead of like, I'm a rugged British spy. So we'll see, but I think he's got the acting chops for it. He's got the charm. Now he just needs to get a little grit and get his Daniel Craig on. But I don't doubt he's able to do it. And to be honest, a couple of years ago, Idris Elba was my number one choice to be James Bond, and I think it's a bloody shame that he didn't get to play him, but now he's just too damn old. Right now, Richard Madden's my front runner to play the character. There's just some people that were like my top 2, top 3 to play James Bond, and they're all just getting too old now. Like Cillian Murphy was up there on my list. And Tom Hardy was someone that I was like, okay, I'd get around it, but I struggled a little bit with it, but I was like, okay, I'd be down. But Idris Elba was number one by far and away. But now Richard Madden, I don't even have a second and a third choice for the character. Maybe Henry Cavill.
Does it bother you though? Like, would you prefer someone who's not that well known? Like, yes. Yeah. So like, I know well, we've talked about this before. Like, I'm a massive Game of Thrones fan. I know you're not, but so to me, like, the world knows who Richard Madden is. Um, I'm all for him as well, but that's like my only hesitation. And that's even with like, I would love Henry Cavill to be Bond as well, but he's just too famous. Like, you
Can't be
look at
Superman
him,
and Bond.
yeah, you just can't. So it's kind of like, do they find an unknown? I think I prefer that the more I
Yeah.
think about it.
Well, here's the thing with Richard Madden. Um, yes, people know Game of Thrones, but you don't realize when he's not in his like medieval garb and he's in The Bodyguard, for example. There's like, I was reading reviews and stuff. It's like a really high rated show. And a ton of people are like, I didn't even realize till I Googled this show that this is the same guy. So
Okay.
I don't think he's as famous as like Kit. You know what I mean? In terms
No,
of,
he's not. No, because he was the star of the show where, you know,
yeah.
for people who haven't seen Game of Thrones, sorry, but I mean, he got killed off pretty earlier on in the series. So,
And that's the thing, right?
yeah.
And so to me, he's still a relatively unknown. Like, yeah, Eternals is gonna blow him up probably, but think about Daniel Craig. He had already starred in the Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie. Like, he had been in movies, he had been known.
Yeah. See, I would say that he kind of was an unknown though. Like, he wasn't a leading man. I mean, I don't know.
There's Richard Madden right now.
No, yeah, I mean,
It does TV, but
you're right. I guess I just like look at Game of Thrones that like that's an international phenomenon. That's not just some little part. I guess if that makes sense. But then again, I'm being hypocritical because that's like saying Kit Harington is playing a character who I love, and he's going to be in this movie. And is the first thing I'm going to say, oh, that's Jon Snow. He's actually playing a character called the Black Knight, which he's kind of being typecasted, but I mean, it's still going to be pretty awesome. So I guess it doesn't matter for a guy like Richard Madden then.
We'll see. My guess is they announced the next James Bond right before they release No Time to Die, because now they need something to hype this stuff back up.
I agree. I'm surprised it hasn't leaked already. I'm assuming there's definitely already someone's been casted. In my opinion, really? I think so.
Do you think it's me?
Could be.
The name's Bond.
Unfortunately,
Bond.
You're too American.
Almost British as it gets. I drove a Jaguar. All right.
The James Bond franchise, though, is good. It's just that movie just needs to come out, and it needs to come out now. I know we've talked about it. It's really just it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, for crying out loud, they've now I'm sounding like I'm Irish. The freaking Irish, they've listen here, Charlie. They've cancelled that damn movie about three, 4, maybe 5 times. It's about time we've got a new James Bond that's perhaps Irish, or Scottish, which is Richard Madden. He's from Scotland. Did you know? Were you aware?
You know what? I probably what? No, not 100% aware. No.
Well, you're trying to quiz me on this? You think I'm fucking lying?
No. I think you're correct.
Richard Madden.
I mean, I'm not
Scottish
surprised
actor.
he's Scottish, but I didn't know that off the top of my head. No, but it doesn't surprise me that he is.
You know why you didn't know that off the top of your head? Because he's not a star yet, but you will know him and everything about him when he gets cast as James Bond.
Because he doesn't.
Although,
go.
It's gonna be the Bridgerton actor, and that pisses me off. But
you think that?
Yeah, it's gonna be him, 100%.
You're probably not wrong.
It's gonna be him, and honestly,
he's like as hot as ever right now, and he's he denied being in season 2 of that show, which is insane. That means he has a big role that he's not allowed to talk about yet.
He's James Bond.
100%.
I wouldn't mind that.
Honestly, not my first choice. I'm not mad about it, but I don't know.
It's just so funny talking about James Bond though. Like, do you want them to keep going younger? Like, I know like continuity in that series doesn't really matter. They tried to do it a little bit with Daniel Craig, but it's just Daniel Craig's character kind of was the quote unquote like prequel or of the character. So it's like, are they really going to continually go younger, or should they try to get an actor within the same age range of when Daniel Craig was in his heyday?
Yeah, well, that's the interesting part that everyone always cracks up about. People that don't. A lot of people didn't realize that Daniel Craig was the youngest James Bond because he looks like he's 80. like in Casino Royale, he's 30. He was 38, I think it was, or 36.
No,
he was 30.
Continue.
I think he was 36 years old when Casino Royale came out, but he looked 50.
Yes, he doesn't not look good for his age, but he and not that he doesn't look good for his age, but yes, he does look older. But the dude from Bridgerton is way younger than that. At least I believe. I think he's
It's in his 20s.
Yeah, 20s or like early 30s, very early.
Yeah. And Richard Madden is probably, he's 34. He's our age.
So that, yeah.
I don't know. I think he'd be a good.
No, so do I. It just got me thinking, like, now the average person probably doesn't know the dude from Bridgerton. I know that show is a massive hit, but it's not the same demographic.
Yeah, you're talking about Renaissance Gossip Girl versus, Richard Madden at least had like 2 badass shows. One about Dungeons and Dragons, and the other one, about being a retired military special operative that now defends a politician in a political thriller and action series. So
it's funny though, that guy is actually rumored to be in Black Panther as well.
Richard Madden?
No, not Richard Madden. Black Panther, the dude from Bridgerton.
Oh, what's his name?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's like something Jean Page, I think. I don't know his first name.
Yeah. Jean-Marie something. But that's the funny thing, is that's how everyone refers to him. No one knows his name. They always just go, that dude from Bridgerton.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, listen, Charlie.
This is a good long talk.
We went down a rabbit hole of all things movies, but this was fun. And I hope it's fun for the people listening. I hope this is a good escape from your daily work lives as you're taking your commutes, as you're running on the treadmill, as you're putting your baby to sleep, as you're trying to make yourself fall asleep, whatever it is. We're new, we're excited, we're in the pod world, and we're not going. We're having way too much fun. I don't care if we have 1 listener a week. We're gonna keep going. I got my fancy microphone now, and
you joined the club.
I joined the club, and hopefully the entertainment value is at an all-time high, you guys. And give us a like, give us a subscribe, drop a comment, tell us how you like it. Name all the things you want to, I would like people to start dropping comments on our Instagram and let us know what they want to hear. What do they want us to dive into? What type of content do they want? And yeah, we're going to keep at it.
And so appreciate the continued listeners, appreciate everyone that's been with us since the beginning. And we hope that more and more of you join every single week. But yeah, great times, Charlie, talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, an amazing series. I give this series an overall ranking of a 9 out of a 10. I think it was just a really well-rounded show. And I'm very happy with it. But
I would actually give it a 9 out of a 10 as well.
Look at that. We agree.
We agree. Not quite 10 out of 10, but almost there.
All right, Charlie, finish my sentence here. Signing out. Nerds.
Be
heard.
Find us on Instagram too at Nerds Be Heard Podcast.
At the Nerds Be Heard Podcast. All right, guys. See you, Charlie.
See you, Matt. Great episode. Next, we'll be talking Bad Batch.
Yes, the Bad Batch.